There's no doubt that sexual desire is a crucial part of any romantic relationship. But what if you're not feeling it as much as you used to? Or what if your partner isn't as interested in sex as you are? Even though access to contraception and premarital sex is basically the norm in the Western world, also women have more sexual liberties than ever in history, most people find that it is difficult to sustain desire in relationships. This has been coming up for a lot of my clients recently, so I decided to make a video about it. Actually, I have a lot of videos coming up about it. In this video, we're going to dive into what it takes to stoke the fire of desire and reignite the spark in your relationship and your sex life. It is too quickly assumed that problems with sex in relationship have to do with a lack of closeness. So couples will go to couples therapy and they will go week after week and they will talk about what's going on for them and they will start to understand each other better. But there's one important thing that is missing, and it's actually separation. Let me explain. To have love, we absolutely need intimacy. But when intimacy collapses and merges everything together, it is not a lack of closeness, but too much closeness that fizzles out desire. When we first start dating somebody, there's this entire fantasy of what we might become together, this imagined, romanticized idea of what could happen. There's this excitement, this uncertainty. And as this fantasy of an ideal romance begins to actually turn into a relationship, the excitement and the uncertainty of this fantasy fades. You begin to experience familiarity. And as you grow emotionally intimate through consistency and familiarity and getting to know each other, which is foundational to creating trust and security, desire begins to fade. If intimacy is knowing everything about each other, desire is the mystery. Intimacy shrinks the distance between people, but desire is energized by that distance. You cannot have a healthy relationship without intimacy. However, desire is neutralized by the repetition, by the familiarity. Desire thrives on mystery and excitement and unknown and room and space for longing and wanting. So on one hand, with too much distance, there would be no intimacy and no emotional closeness. But in meshing your lives entirely, it eradicates the individuality and the aloneness that is required to cultivate desire and eroticism. When two people merge their lives together completely, when two become one, connection can no longer happen because you're already connected. So there's no one to connect to because you are one. Esther Perel says that separateness is actually a precondition for connection. This is the essential paradox of intimacy and sex. But this is also the thing that creates the tension that we love so much. So it's not a problem. It's just a matter of understanding more about how we operate and how you can cultivate the desire that you're wanting. And here's how you can do that. Number one is intimacy, right? This is probably a little bit more familiar, but there are some people who are just not comfortable getting emotionally naked. And by this, I mean emotional connection through authenticity, vulnerability, and communication. Sharing your desires and exploring your vulnerabilities actually heightens trust in relationships. But this is really hard to do when you don't actually know what you want, who you are, and you don't actually spend a lot of time on your own to discover that. If you have a hard time expressing your emotions or even knowing what you're feeling at all, somatic practices can be really helpful. Things such as dancing, yoga, breath work. There's many different things you can do to train yourself to be present and aware of the sensations and the emotions in your body. This is a really powerful way to get to know who you are, what you want, what you need, and what you desire, so that you can communicate it with somebody you love and create more intimacy. Now, if you're anything like me, you might find tremendous awareness through processing your emotions intellectually. A lot of people talk about feel your feelings, cry, go into your emotions, but I've actually really found it helpful to go through more of a mental pathway to intellectualize and understand what's happening in my body and my feelings. This is extremely uncommon advice, especially among yoga teachers and healers, but it's really given me a ton of freedom, which is why I really love tools like hypnotherapy and integrative coaching. Okay, so number one is intimacy. I could make 10 videos just on intimacy, but I want to get more into cultivating the desire, which you will find that some of these are going to resonate more with others, and you'll find, oh, this is the one I could maybe work on a little bit more in my relationship. So I'm just going to go through all of them, and I'll be making other videos to go more in depth. And if you have any questions, please let me know in comments. Okay, so the second thing is all about creating anticipation. This is all about context. Another thing that Esther Perel says that I absolutely love is that foreplay begins at the end of the previous orgasm. So rather than thinking about sex and desire as an isolated thing, how can you cultivate in your everyday life moments of flirting and being playful, being suggestive, leaving little seeds and notes and intentions of connecting later, and letting it be drawn out for hours or even days to create some tension and anticipation. I have another video that's all about how to lovingly challenge your partner in a way that creates sexual tension, but I want to focus this video on the energetic contrast that will create desire and stoke your sexual energy in your relationship. This brings me to point number 3, which is all about polarity. So if you think about two magnets, the positive is attracted to the negative pole, right? They'll just be magnetized straight together. But if you try to put the positive pole, the negative pole, it just doesn't really, it's repelled. Many problems in relationships can be traced back to depolarization, where there's too much of the same energy and it's either neutralizing attraction or even repelling each other. This happens when one or both partners begins to develop the traits of the opposite energy. This means you start to become the same. So understanding the yin and the yang aspects, also known as feminine and masculine, light and dark, positive, negative, we live in a dualistic world. So it doesn't really matter necessarily what your gender is, even in same-sex relationships. The attraction will be strong when somebody embodies the feminine or the yin pole and the other partner embodies the yang pole or the masculine pole. So it's the differences, they say opposites attract. This is what it's all about. Cultivating polarity intentionally can create insane attraction in your relationship. I have so much to say about this topic, and I have lots of videos coming about it. So hit the bell button if you'd like to be notified when the next videos come out. I used to depolarize my relationships by unconsciously going into my masculine energy. This is something that I learned and developed as a little girl without having a father figure at home in my family unit. So as the eldest child, I took on the role that was missing in the family. And so I learned how to be hyper independent. And what that did to my relationships as an adult was that I didn't need my partner for anything. And I actually used to pride myself on this, thinking I'm so independent, but that didn't really make for a great relationship, and it definitely fizzled out the polarity. Bottom line is to restore polarity in your relationships. You have to examine the issues in your life that have created depolarization to begin with. And I will get to that in a few moments. And number 4 is separateness. And this is especially important if you've been in a long-term relationship and you are lacking in sexual excitement, intimacy, and desire, and you want to cultivate that excitement again. When you first start a relationship, there are two individual people with entire worlds going on that are unique and new. And then you come in together and you start to do everything together. And maybe you don't spend as much time with your friends and you start to let some hobbies go and you just start to do everything together and everything the same. And there's no new energy, no new fresh excitement that you're bringing to each other because everything is becoming the same and shared. And if you have so much intimacy and not enough individuation, it becomes quite bland. So why do we do this? The most important thing to hear about this is that the challenge arises when you seek partnership or intimacy as a way to protect yourself from feeling alone. If you're not comfortable being alone, this will eventually smother any relationship. You need to spend time alone. Also, with spending time with other people, new people, your own individual friends and things that you like, but spending time alone and even prioritizing it is absolutely essential. This is time that you spend getting to know yourself. We actually grow, well, hopefully we're growing and evolving and constantly learning new things about ourselves and the world. But when we get into a relationship and it becomes comfortable and we stop connecting with our own individual thoughts, aside from what our partner thinks or wants or desires, this is where you continue to grow and develop yourself as an individual. And this will make you very magnetic. So this is really, really such a powerful thing. This is like the key, I would say, that most people are missing when they think that they want more closeness and intimacy in the relationship, but they're not cultivating any separateness. Your ability to not only tolerate, but look forward to time on your own when you are in a long-term relationship is a precondition for maintaining desire and interest in a relationship. So instead of always striving for closeness, and like I said, going to therapy, let's talk more, talk more, talk more. I recommend that if you've worked on that a lot, why don't you try to cultivate aloneness, separateness, your individual lives? But here's why most people won't do that. Because if you're uncomfortable being alone, you probably are super busy, fill your time with work, people, friends, relationships, movies, TV, social media, drinking, this, that, like your life is so full that you don't spend any time on your own, then you're probably using your relationship in some ways to avoid being with yourself. And look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a totally innocent and completely normal thing that people do. We just don't have it as a part of our culture to value doing nothing and rest and meditation. I mean, it's happening more now, but these are the things that help you to connect with what's going on beneath the surface that you're avoiding. Fears, past hurt, insecurities, emotions that you're not sure what to do with. If you don't prioritize some form of connecting with yourself and being alone, and it doesn't all have to be like looking at those negative things, but that's usually the reason, those negative feelings are usually the reason why we avoid being alone. So if you actually go into those things and bring some healing and resolve some of the insecurities so that you can feel more confident, then you're going to feel a little bit better about being alone. And you might even start to look forward to it. If you don't address these things that are unconsciously affecting you anyways, it will, in one way or another, eventually deteriorate your relationship. All of this to bring us to point number 5, which is to do the work. And honestly, I'm going to cut straight to it. It is so much easier to do with professional support. If you don't like meditating, if you haven't done it before, if you're a chronic distractor and avoider, then just hit the easy button. Because when you have powerful support to look at your unconscious patterns, it's so much easier to heal them. You can get on my wait list if you're interested in working with me, or just find somebody that can help you address your past hurt, your past pain. We've all had our heart broken. Even if you've had a picture perfect life, we still live in a world that tells us all of these harmful and unhelpful and just not even accurate things about who we are and what we should be doing with our lives. Over time, you pick up these stories and these experiences in your unconscious mind that deeply affect you. And if these things are not true and they go against your true nature, they can hold you back a lot. If you don't intentionally spend time alone to see what these stories are, or if you don't do something to intentionally change them, they will get in the way of you achieving your goals, of you connecting with others, and you being comfortable being with yourself. Truth be told, it's actually my male clients who seem to hold on to and be most afraid of the heartbreak and the hurt that they've experienced from past relationships. And those fears and resentments are most easily healed by working with the subconscious mind. As a clinical hypnotherapist, this is exactly what I do. I help people explore the depths of their psyche and their unconscious habits, behaviors, and motivations so that they can understand themselves better and make changes the easy way. Due to the shame and the stigma attached to sex and talking about it, working with the subconscious mind is one of the best ways to improve your sex life and your relationships. If you're curious about working with me, come to thelivingnarrative.com. I also have this really cool, unique workshop called Orgasmic Existence. In this 2-hour workshop, you will let go of the past, you'll release old stories, limiting beliefs, and cultural conditioning, and replace it with greater intimacy, pleasure, and most importantly, the self-connection and awareness that is going to help you to be present and aware of who you are and what you want as a sexual being. You can see how this is absolutely foundational to the 5 steps that I've shared with you today. Being able to create the intimacy, being able to communicate about it, and being able to feel secure within yourself so that you can feel empowered and confident to be on your own, to create spaciousness and separateness in your relationship. I promise this will create so much more attraction and desire. And if the few things that I shared about polarity also sparked an interest, this will help with that. When you see where you try to be overly controlling or possibly avoidant, and you let those things go, this will allow you to embody your true essence and the energy and the pole that feels most natural to you. This workshop is open and available to anyone, any gender, single, in a relationship or a situationship, doesn't matter. So come to thelivingnarrative.com to join the workshop and celebrate your orgasmic existence. Here are a few more videos that you might find interesting. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And as I mentioned, I have a lot more videos on these topics coming up, so if you're interested, hit the bell button so that you can be notified whenever I post a new video. See you in the next one.